Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Dave and Adams Fantasy Football Show. It's Hunter.
And it's Alyssa.
What up, what up? Coming to you from the Rip Lounge, if you know, here at Dave and Adams in New York City. We got 6th Ave right behind us. Normally, this is just a streaming area, but we are looking to expand the media a little bit. You know, we are a card store. We do a lot of cards, memorabilia, but two of us love our fantasy football. We talk fantasy football every day, and we wanted to bring you guys some content to where we could talk fantasy football on a week-to-week basis and post it somewhere so you guys can get our takes, our updates, our weekly rankings going into the week, what we think is going to happen, just all this stuff football. Want to keep talking football as much as we can.
Maybe even some crash outs.
Maybe some crash outs. Yeah. We are going to be filming these, by the way, on Mondays, and then maybe a little bit on Tuesday. I'll talk about the Monday night game. If anything big happens, I'll edit a little thing in at the end. But primarily, these will be Mondays. So majority of our recaps will be based on the Sunday games through and through. Obviously, we'll have Thursday night involved, but 95% of the teams will play up until Monday night, and we want to talk about fantasy football. So we are here at Dave and Adams talking about fantasy football. Starting the show. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. You're a natural at this.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
I'm over here nervous as hell.
Aw, this is fun. I mean, I'm the camera one. I do this every day. This is what I'm trying to do. But fantasy football has been good for. It's been good for one of us. I can tell you that I had a very good week this week. I can't lie. I call myself the Sprockets. That's my team name. The Sprockets is my dad's name. I can't take too much credit. We did win this week, and I have Ashton Genty still to play, and I already won the game, which is a great feeling. I want to give a big shout out first and foremost to Bijan Robinson for bouncing back after a bad week with a 2-touchdown game. I traded for George Kittle this week. We're going to talk about trades and stuff, guys. So any trades that are happening, waiver wire pickups, all that stuff, we will be talking about that on this show. Big week in fantasy football for me.
Not too much for me. So I have, I think, about 13 teams, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
None of my teams cracked 90 points.
Wow. Not one.
So
Okay.
The injury bug got me. I did what you're not supposed to do, and I drafted all of my teams super similar. I was super hopeful in the wrong people.
Yep.
Reached for Malik Neighbors. Lost him early.
I know you're a big Mike Evans girl, so Mike
him
Evans going
again.
down had to hurt.
Hurt me a lot. James Conner going down
Yup.
hurt me a lot.
Yep.
Bucky Irving going down hurt me a lot.
Seems
Joe
to be
Burrow
seems
going
to be a
down
theme here.
hurt me
Seems to be a
lot.
theme.
So I think I'm kind of a little bit cursed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not having a fun time.
That's fair. Yeah. For our first episode, though, we're not going to do too much stuff about Week 11. If you wanted a little recap of Week 11, just join the streams, Fanatics Live, Monday through Friday. We talk football all day long. But we're going to just do a general fantasy football show to start the first episode. And as we go on week by week, we will be more specific in the future in terms of, actual preparation for Week 13, rankings and free agents, waiver wire pickups. If someone goes down, we will get you guys with who to pick up and who we think is going to have big weeks upcoming. But I wanted to start this first show here at Dave and Adams Rip Lounge talking about just why the best players in fantasy are having the best years, because I don't think going into this year, if you would have told me Jonathan Taylor would be RB1 and Jackson Smith-Njigba would be wide receiver 1, I don't think that we would have had that, the reaction. So
Before the season started, I was big on, I'm not too much a Jonathan Taylor girl. I know he had one crazy fantasy season a few years ago, never really touched that again, and I was just stuck on he's not really going to do much. And I don't know, shouldn't have thought that. He got Daniel Jones. I've seen what Saquon Barkley did in New York.
True.
With Daniel Jones at quarterback. That whole offense was pound Saquon. So honestly, should have kind of seen just pound Jonathan Taylor.
yeah, I remember I saw a statistic about last year, how in the second half of the year after Jonathan Taylor came back from injury, they just went ballistic. Even with Anthony Richardson starting at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor had multiple 20-plus point games, multiple touchdown games. And, the trend leading into this year, we should have seen the increase. That is the best offensive line in football. I think hands down this year, the Colts are the best offensive line in football. And when you put an MVP caliber running back and maybe a top 3 to 4 running back in football behind that offensive line, big things are going to happen.
That is very, very true. And I just want to talk about JSN real quick, because I feel like going into the season, it was what we thought: Jamar,
Jada's, Malik Neighbors. BTJ was being drafted sometimes in the first round. I know Nico Collins. I drafted Nico Collins in the first round of at the end of one of my leagues, and now it's, you could have just waited till the third round taking JSN, and you would be winning your fantasy league.
Well, Sam Darnold should have believed in him. I did
Sam
not.
Darnold, yeah. And also, they don't really have many other receivers. I hate to say it. They've got a great offense, one of the most efficient offenses in football this year. I want to give a big shout out to offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, because he has revolutionized the Seattle Seahawks offense, whether it's, whether you want to talk about the upgrade from Geno to Darnold, or you want to talk about them getting rid of DK and Tyler Lockett in the offseason, so opening up target share for JSN. He's catching everything that goes his way.
And I just love Seattle.
I know.
love that team.
I know.
That defense, offense. I don't know.
They're calling
Seattle-
themselves the dark side now, I've heard. They call them, it's like the Star Wars, the dark side. I'm like, oh, that goes hard.
That's kind of cool.
That goes hard.
I'm kind of like believing in them right
Yeah.
now. I'm like buying into
love it.
Seattle shares right
I
now.
love it. And I do want to say, probably the biggest regret of most people's drafts, especially in the later rounds, we're talking about Malik Neighbors, we're talking about Nico Collins, we're talking about, Brian Thomas Jr. and the receivers. But at the end of the first round, there was only one pick that is successful, and that's Christian McCaffrey right now, who is the current leader in fantasy football rankings. He is number 1 in fantasy football points for the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, I think he's top 10 in receiving yards this year, on top of obviously being one of the RB1s. What happened? What needed to happen for CMC to, have this, once again, another incredible year?
Not be on the cover of Madden.
Yep.
That's really
And injuries. No injuries. He's
I
healthy.
know. I
Somehow
feel
the whole
it's a
Niners team.
pattern. It's 1 year healthy, next year hurt. 1 year healthy, next year hurt. And then it's like because he's hurt season 4, you don't want to draft him too early because you're like, no, I don't
Yep.
want any injuries. And then boom, I got him early in the second round.
Oh, wow.
In one of my drafts, and at that point, it's like I
Gotta
just
take him. Have to.
And grateful for that, but other than that, I don't know. I'm kind of mad I didn't go for
Yeah.
CMC.
Yeah,
All of my
especially over
guys have been so
neighbors, the
good.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I went Brian Thomas too. Really.
I don't blame you. And it's been cool too to see CMC, even with Brock Purdy being out a lot of this year. George Kittle missed, I believe, at least 4 weeks this year. I know Ricky Pearsall's missed time. Juwan Jennings has missed time. I mean, even Brian Robinson was like traded right before the season started. And that made me think, oh, maybe CMC won't be used as much. And CMC is still the running back 1 and overall player 1 in all fantasy football. If you were projecting going into next year and you had the number 1 overall pick, is it going to be JSN? Is it going to be Jonathan Taylor? Is it going to be Jamar Chase still? Or are you going to go in the CMC route because he's been so good this year? It's a tough option, but...
I don't know, because then it's like at that point, whoever I choose is going to be wrong. I could say, oh, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor because now I have to, and Colts somehow
fall apart.
Justin Jefferson, you could go. I know a lot of people went Jett as number 1, but then it's like, do I trust J.J. McCarthy? I was a J.J. McCarthy girl, and I'd be like, no, I don't.
Now you
really
cannot trust JJ, especially after yesterday's game against the Bears. He looked really, really
It was
bad.
a really bad game. And I had Jordan Addison, so I was
Who had
watching-
0 catches till that last drive, right? Thank God he caught the touchdown to give them the lead over the Bears before the Bears obviously kicked the game-winning field goal. But yeah, did not help. Did not help at all.
At all.
One of the players that surprised me the most to see at the top of the rankings this year, it's funny, I predicted the Dolphins to be bad. I felt like, A-Chain was dealing with injuries before the season even started. I thought it was going to be not a good A-Chain year, but yet Tyreek and Waddle would keep their stuff. Obviously, Tyreek goes down with the injury. You never want to see a guy like Tyreek Hill go down with injury, but can't control that. And yet Devon A-Chain is currently sitting at the RB3 and I believe player 4 overall in fantasy football. What is this all about?
I don't know. I have A-Chain, so that's been really good for
Okay.
me in my dynasty.
Ooh, that's big. That's big.
So
Even with the rumors at the deadline, he might have gotten traded. I know there were rumors coming out about A-Chain at the deadline to possibly like Seattle. I heard,
he
but
scores every week though, consistently. It's one of those things I thought Miami was going to be really bad too. I
Mhm.
stayed away from him in a lot of drafts, more so because I don't really trust Tua, and I
Yeah.
didn't trust that offense at all. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you don't trust your quarterback, you gotta trust your running back.
True.
So that should have been the thought process instead of just me going, "Oh, Miami, disgusting. I'm gonna stay away from anybody
Yep.
in Miami." But no, he's one of my best players. Confident start
Every
single
week, yeah.
Don't even have to.
I
doubt
saw
it.
a couple weeks towards the end of the season, towards playoff time, he's projected over like 27, 28 points a week, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've not seen a running back in maybe a year be projected in the 27, 28 range, other than a guy like Christian McCaffrey, really, who's just he's going to get the catching volume, and Bijan, but Algiers been stealing all these touchdowns from Bijan. We're going to get into Bijan because Bijan's actually the player 5 overall in fantasy, and that's with him actually only having, I believe, 4 touchdowns on the whole season rushing.
I crush
Algier.
on every week. Like, no, Algier's in. From, I think, last year before that, it was just always Algier.
I know. They love him in the red zone. And it actually bothered me so much yesterday against the Panthers because Bijan has the first 2 touchdowns to start the game. They get all the way down to the 1-yard line. They do a design passing play on the right side to Bijan, which didn't get completed. Bijan goes to the sideline. Algier comes in. They give Algier the 1-yard rushing touchdown. And I was like, there's no way I have to watch Bijan get another touchdown at the 1-yard line stolen from him by Tyler Algier. But that's the Atlanta Falcons for you. That's why you can't. There's some teams that you just want to stay away from. We said Miami with Devon Achane. I swear Atlanta is one of them because if you're not drafting Drake London or Bijan Robinson, and even then you get so disappointed every other week by one of those guys, it's, and now Penix out for the year, apparently with a knee injury, so we get to watch Kirko Chains lead the Atlanta Falcons. You like Kirko?
I love me some Kirko. Kirko did win me a chip.
Oh, yeah?
When he was on the Vikes, I think that last season, well, not the last season,
but yeah.
Probably I think the season before that. And I honestly wanted way more out of him.
Yeah.
The first year with the Falcons. I thought that was a big Kyle Pitts year because I know Kirk loves his tight ends.
He always did.
Not what happened, but you know what? I hope he plays good because I hate seeing like my favorite players leave the league going out sad like Matt Ryan, like those kind of guys who are like, oh, you were so good and now you're going
Phillip
out
Rivers,
washed.
Matt Ryan going out in the Colts. I swear, if you go to the Colts, just hang it up after the Colts. But and I will say, I want to go back real quickly to Jonathan Taylor because you got to remember for majority of the offseason, we really thought Anthony Richardson was going to be the starter. I mean, it was really until Anthony Richardson got that injury like a month before the season started that Daniel Jones was assigned the real starting quarterback. Do you think that Jonathan Taylor would still be RB1 right now if Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, or do you think it would look different because maybe they're not having as much success or Anthony Richardson stealing rushing touchdowns? What do you think the dynamic is?
I mean, maybe, but Daniel Jones is a rushing quarterback too.
True. He
runs.
QB sneaks sometimes. He does that tush push.
I honestly didn't think AR was going to start at all.
Okay.
Maybe it's like the mini Danny Dimes believer in me. Giants fan, I have custom Danny Dimes jerseys.
I love
was
it.
Rooting for him. But I know the type of football he can play when he's on an actual good team.
Yep.
And there's good coaches and there's like good plays being called for him. So I honestly, I don't think we see it from Jonathan Taylor. I don't think the Colts offense is the same.
Interesting.
Because AR was on that team. I feel like offensive line kind of basically the same. When AR was starting, offense basically the same, and they weren't having
Not even close to the success they're having this year, obviously. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Shane Steichen. He has really changed this coaching dynamic. You can see him and Daniel Jones, even just like their communication and energy towards each other on the sideline is so much better than the vibes and energy we've seen with like Anthony Richardson over the past couple of years, where it felt like, he checked himself out of a game. That definitely doesn't help anyone. And then obviously Jonathan Taylor missing time. I think it was like, oh my God, Marlon Mack getting reps at running back or Amir Abdullah getting reps. I don't even know. But like these are the guys that we had to watch the Colts play last year. Now that they're healthy this year and they got a competent quarterback back there, they're making big plays.
Got my man Sauce back there too.
Sauce is there now? Yep. It's defense, obviously. We don't talk too much fantasy football defense, but maybe one day we'll have our defensive talk.
The defense matters.
True. Trust me, the Steelers defense this week against Cincinnati won me my fantasy week in a couple weeks. So shout out Chris Boswell and the Steelers defense. I've got them in way too many leagues, but that's how I keep my Steelers fandom in fantasy football. I don't want to root for the offensive players because I'll get so frustrated when Kenneth Gainwell comes in and steals 2 touchdowns from Jaylen Warren.
That's me. It was my big thing. Don't draft Giants. And Malik Neighbors came in and kind of just like made me fall in love just to break my heart.
Yep. And then obviously you probably went through the whole time of Scatabo too. The 4-week period of Scatabo becoming. I actually just looked at the statistics. I think he's actually still a top 18 fantasy running back right now, even with missing the past couple weeks, which is incredible if you really think about it. With the expectations, he was a 4th-round pick. He wasn't even expected to be the starter over Tracy.
Big time on Tracy, girl. I got him late in a lot of drafts, so when Scat came in, I was like, oh, that was my running back, and I'm stuck in running back hell, which always seems to happen to me, even though the top players in fantasy football are basically all running backs.
Basically all of them.
I didn't have any of them.
That happens sometimes. That's drafting. You can't control how you draft, but you can control how you trade along the way. Remember that, guys. You can always change your fantasy. So if you're in the right league. I know a lot of leagues don't be trading like that.
I don't. I go down my ship, but don't be like me. I had the opportunity. I forgot what exactly the trade offer was, but I was supposed to get Jonathan Taylor in exchange for AJ Brown, and I forget who else. And I never went through with that trade, and I probably should.
Probably. I think you definitely, especially with AJ Brown coming out publicly and saying, "Don't start me."
And this was like September, so for me, I was still holding out on that hope of like, oh, I I know.
And the Colts he was probably trying to sell high on Jonathan Taylor, thinking he wasn't going to keep up that production. And here we are now in November 17th, and he's still the RB1 in fantasy.
Yeah, very dumb move by me.
Yeah, I could see that. Let's move on to biggest surprises of the fantasy football season. So obviously the first team I think we all have to bring up is they just beat the Atlanta Falcons yesterday in a crazy, crazy win. The Carolina Panthers had both Rico Dowdle, who is a top 10 running back in fantasy, which I don't think anyone expected with that one-year deal he signed over the offseason, and Tetairoa McMillan officially just inserted himself as a top 10 fantasy wide receiver after his 8-catch, 130 yards, and 2-touchdown game. What have you seen out of the Carolina Panthers that has changed this offense? Is it really just these guys are really good players, and is it just the talent, or is it the schemes, or what are you seeing?
Okay, for one, I'm a big Rico Dowdle girl. My Twitter proves this from when he was on the Cowboys. I said Rico Dowdle season. I had him for a few weeks in fantasy when he was on Dallas too.
Okay.
A lot of my running
I
backs
went at the end of the draft. You're looking for a running back you knew would get touches and you knew would have a solid floor of 10 points. Cowboys running back Rico Dowdle last year was a guy.
Also, I'm a big Bryce Young girl. The Panthers got a lot of heat from me when they traded up and they got rid of all their picks, and then everybody's saying Bryce Young is a bust, and I'm like, it's not Bryce Young. They gave him no help, traded away all his weapons. You have 33-year-old Adam Thielen, wide receiver 1. And it's like, I love Thielen, but
Miles Sanders is running back 1.
Yeah,
Chuba Hubbard this was before the Chuba breakout of second half of last year.
1 week I'm looking at their depth chart and all the tight ends are hurt, so it's like he quite literally had nothing around him. But I think now it's like the team's healthy. The scheme is a lot better. The players that you have are good. You get him a young stud at receiver. You get him a decent running back, a nice running back. It's like, come on.
Yeah. I want to give a big shout out to the head coach, Dave Canales. I think Dave Canales has really changed this whole culture in Carolina.
Yeah.
Funny enough, my friend and I used to play this guessing game where you had to guess the other person's NFL player. Long story. We won't get into that. Maybe we'll do the game one day on camera eventually. But we wouldn't even count the Carolina Panthers as a team last year. We wouldn't even try because we were like, who are they playing? Honestly, we couldn't, outside of Chuba Hubbard and Bryce Young, we were like, we don't care about any of the receivers. We don't care about, Jatavion Sanders, no offense, or Tommy Tremble at their tight end position. And it was like, why would we, fantasy-wise, even think any of these guys are relevant when they're not winning games and really nothing was going right in that offense? They bring in Rico. Obviously, Chuba goes down with the injury. Rico has back-to-back 230-plus scrimmage yard games. Then they try and bring Chuba back in for a little bit. Chuba does not show the efficiency that Rico does, and they basically move forward with Rico Dowdle for the rest of the year. How do you feel about the Carolina Panthers? I know they have a really tough second half of the year moving forward compared to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of Rico Dowdle and Tet are both top 10 at their position. Do you think they stay in the top 10 range, or do you think they fall out? Where do you think that the Panthers go from here?
I mean, wait, who are they playing?
We could go through. Let's find the Panthers. Let's find the Carolina Panthers. So this week they see the 49ers on a Monday night game. Not an easy week. After that they play the Rams, the Saints, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Seahawks, and the Buccaneers to end the year. So it's a lot of the division games, the Bucs, the Saints, but they also have to see basically the 3 really good teams in the NFC West, in the Niners, Rams, and Seahawks. So do you think that, are these guys maybe trade high candidates, sell high candidates, or would you kind of hold on to them just because of their talent?
I mean, I don't trade, I hold on. At that point, it's like if they're playing good, keep up with it. It is a lot of tough matchups, though. I'm not going to lie. I would take Tampa over them twice, even with the injuries, but that's just because I don't really like betting against Tampa. Even when they have injuries, Baker Mayfield still pulls out. I like their defense a lot. Seattle, that defense is nasty.
You don't want to see, even the Rams defense is very solid, and I know the Niners are dealing with a lot of injuries, but a Monday night game, you never really love to see Monday night games in terms of fantasy football, so who knows? Yeah, I would probably downgrade the Panthers a little bit moving forward. The only thing I will say is they're not just going to abandon these guys. So they probably still should be getting the target share. Tet should still be getting 8 to 10 targets a game. Rico still should be the running back 1 back there because Chuba really hasn't taken back over that role.
If I have to choose between the two, I feel like I'm more confident, in Rico than
I would agree.
For the rest of the season.
Do you think that's more because running backs just get the guaranteed touches versus Bryce Young having to get Tet McMillan the ball?
And then I know Bryce Young had the concussion scare yesterday.
Yes, he did.
So it's like you have to keep that in mind. Can Bryce Young stay healthy the rest of the season against these defenses too? Because that's going to affect him a lot. Rico, I feel like that won't really mess up.
True.
It doesn't matter
let's not forget,
he's gonna
Xavier Ogets had a couple really, really weird games where he randomly goes like 8 for 100 and a touchdown. You're like, where did this come from? Why is this not Ted McMillan? He's not getting doubled? So yeah, the Carolina Panthers are definitely gonna be one of those teams that we keep an eye on for the rest of the year. I think seeing how this situation pans out will help us in future, like, understanding of guys like Rico Dowdle, these one year guys, these rookies on weird teams. You know, if they really struggle in the second half of the year, you got to really move forward with the mentality of, oh, you got to go match up base with the predictions for the second half of the year. But the talent might just be there for guys like Rico and Ted. And if they just keep balling out, I would not be surprised to see both of them keep up their top 10 fantasy rankings for the season so far.
I hope so.
Next player I want to talk about, obviously CeeDee Lamb went down with an injury, so we have to temper expectations a little bit. But George Pickens, coming over from the Steelers to the Dallas Cowboys, I believe he is wide receiver 5 or 6 in fantasy football right now, and he has been lights out for Dallas.
I believe one of your first days here, I said George Pickens, and I can't believe the Steelers let George Pickens go because of how much of a George Pickens girl that I am. I absolutely love George Pickens. I feel like Steelers, I hated freaking Arthur Smith.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you.
I feel like that offense was terrible. Quarterbacks were terrible. And for me, I was like, if you're moving forward and you're going to have, you're bringing in DK, why not just have the both of them play together? I don't know. You gave them to my division rival, and I hate you guys for that. But
for a third round pick.
But I'm very happy he's with a decent quarterback because I do like Dak Prescott a lot. And even if CD didn't go down, I feel like George Pickens still would have been the guy. He's just that good. He's so good. Oh, I'm gonna crash out.
No, his catch radius obviously is great. And then once he became the wide receiver one, when CD went down, he was just getting. It was like he was either Ferguson getting in the end zone or Pickens getting you 40 yards there, and or Javonte was getting a couple of good runs. The offense, obviously, you want guys that are a part of the number 1 ranked offense. That is a trend you should always go towards. Actually, one of my worst takes of the year so far was the week after Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt or Bill had a really big rushing game. I think he had like a 2-touchdown, 120-yard game. I was looking at all the statistics, and I was looking at best rushing offenses. And I was thinking, okay, you would want to buy into the players on the best rushing offenses, right? Well, unfortunately, I was like, let me buy into Bill because he's on the best rushing offense, and here he has been terrible. But realistically, I should have just been looking at total point offenses and said, oh, the Cowboys score a lot. The Detroit Lions score a lot. The Buccaneers score a lot. The Bills score a lot. It's buy into the offenses, just score because it gives my players more opportunities to score as opposed to touches on a bad offense. Not really there.
Yeah,
but George Pickens.
I had a lot of people trying to shop Bill, to me, but I was more of a Chris Rodriguez
I don't blame you.
from the beginning, and I held on to him, which probably I shouldn't have. It's just like wasting up a bench space like a little bit. But that's kind of where my head was. It's like, okay, I'm seeing these like breakout games, but I feel like the workload was just too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But even with now, like looking at the Pickens situation with CD coming back, do you think that Pickens can keep up that level of production even with the touchdowns go all over the place. Ferguson gets a touchdown here and there. Javonte gets a touchdown. Obviously, CD's got to get touchdowns. You still think Pickens will stay very high fantasy relevant?
Yeah, because I think with the offense like Dallas, it's like there's too many like mouths to feed. So it's like the defense, there's too many people for them to focus on. It's like they're going to put majority of their efforts on stopping CD from scoring, which is going to leave Pickens open. But then it's like, let's say they try to block both CD and Pickens. It's like they still have Ferguson. So there's just too much for defenses to handle, I think. And I think majority of the effort's going to go towards CD Lamb. So I think Pickens is still.
I completely agree, and I know that if CD's getting double covered on some deep post on the right, and Dak Prescott sees George Pickens on a released one-on-one on that left side, that ball is being floated up to George Pickens every time. So very excited for tonight's game, by the way, Raiders Cowboys. So maybe we get to see a big Pickens game, a big CD game, a big Javonte game. We kind of get to see what direction the Cowboys are going to fall. You are real, even as a Giants fan. You're publicly rooting for Dallas.
I'm going for Dallas tonight. Yes, I am.
Well, funny enough, I'm going for the Raiders. So let's. Oh yeah, Brock Bowers my favorite player in football. So I love Brock Bowers so much. I got to root for the Raiders whenever I can. And the last player I want to say, speaking of Brock Bowers, that keeps us in the tight ends trend. There has been by far the biggest positional. I don't know. What do you want to say? Like advantage. Over any other position, and that is if you drafted Trey McBride in the second half of your fantasy football drafts, you are probably already a playoff team right now because he is getting the most targets we've seen out of a tight end in a very long time, the most catches in general, the most yards. He's I remember last year, I believe he only had 2 or 3 touchdowns the whole season with Kyler Murray. I think he's already at like 5 or 6 touchdowns on the year. I just want we've talked a lot about tight ends. You know, Bowers went down with an injury. Kittle was down for 4 weeks. Tucker Kraft is now out for the year. Trey McBride has just been the guy at the tight end position. What do you make of all the tight ends?
I feel like tight ends are kind of scarce right now, which is kind of surprising. Like me, I was a big Sam Laporta girl, but I think after his rookie year hasn't really done much. Evan Ingram after the
I was
Jags,
so
like,
high on Evan Ingram going to Denver in the offseason, and he has just had no part of that offense.
Yeah, and who else is left? Like,
right?
at
Like
that
Dalton
point-
Kincaid maybe a little bit in the Bills, but even then you don't feel great about it. You mentioned Kyle Pitts maybe earlier with the Falcons, but he has not had the...
Even like Goddard, but it's like Eagles not really good passing.
Ferguson was the tight end one for a little
Yeah.
bit just because of the touchdown volume, but it feels like Trey McBride is really the only guy at that tight end position that you feel set and forget it, and you know you're going to at least get 10, 15 points out of him.
Especially because all your top guys aren't doing anything. Even
Njoku
what's
wasn't,
doing?
Well, Njoku got all his minutes taken from that Harold Fannin, like immediately. Like within 2 weeks, it felt like they went in the direction of Fannin, which really surprised me, honestly. I love Njoku. I always thought he was a good player.
Him and Joe Flacco.
Right?
What a tandem.
Right? And then they trade Flacco immediately. It's like, gosh, that's normal Bears activity, or sorry, normal Browns activity.
And now they don't have any quarterbacks, right? Because Dylan Gabriel's going down. You got Shador who had that.
We don't have to talk about it. Shador is not fantasy relevant. Don't pick him up if you're starting him, all right? If you need a quarterback, it's not Shador. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Trey McBride because it feels like I took Bowers before McBride went in my draft. I know most people probably did, thinking Geno Smith was a big upgrade over that. Going into next year, do you think we're going to see a resurgence from some of these tight ends, say like the Sam Laportas of the world, the Brock Bowers of the world, having bigger years? Or do you think it still kind of stays in this trend where there's going to be 1 or 2 top guys, and outside of that, it's going to be very scarce to find other tight ends?
I think it might just be those top guys. For Laporta, this is now the second down year he's had. They like Brock Wright, I believe.
I
That's their
know.
other tight end.
Yeah.
I see him get a lot of catches that would have normally gone to Laporta. So I don't know. And even when Laporta was a top tight end, there wasn't any of them.
I know.
Uh,
And then obviously Tucker Kraft going down with the injury. I don't want to talk about Kraft, but he was...
One name we haven't even said yet, which shows you how terrible tight ends have been, Travis Kelce.
Oh, I know. That's true. And because he had a big game yesterday against Denver, I believe 9 for 91 and a touchdown. But that's really the first time all year we've looked at Kelce and been like, finally, we're feeling good about him.
He fell to like 10th, 11 rounds in a lot of my drafts. Like nobody even wanted to
No one wanted to touch
Travis
him.
Kelce.
Even with Rashee missing the first 6 weeks and Worthy going down for the first 3 weeks because of Kelce, no one even cared.
First round pick tight end at
Yeah.
one point too.
No one even cared. So those are the biggest surprises of this season, if you want to call it that. We're talking about the Panthers. We were talking about the Cowboys. We were talking about the Arizona Cardinals, tight ends and stuff. But now we're going to move on to the biggest disappointments of the year, because I know we have a lot of people that we could bring up in this. The first team I want to bring up, and it does suck to say, but I know A.J. Brown was basically a second rounder, early third at the latest in most fantasy drafts. Saquon Barkley was at worst a top 5 or 6 pick in most drafts. And both of those guys are not even top 10, I believe, at their position right now, Saquon and A.J. Brown. What do you make of this Philadelphia Eagles offense? Is it coaching? Is it everything? Like, what is going on with this Eagles, and why are they not?
It's everything. One, Madden curse hit Saquon, which I felt like was going to happen when I drafted him. Outside of that, I think last year their offense was a lot better, especially in the passing game. And I know this because I had Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown last year, and they got me to a final spot. But now A.J. Brown barely gets targets, and then when he does, I guess he can't really catch the ball. Devontae Smith, I would think, is taking majority of like his share, but even then, Devontae Smith hasn't really been doing that great. Philly is just a mess to me. I think that offense not meshing.
Not
Something's
meshing.
just wrong.
Yeah,
Weird.
it's got to be some part of the offensive coordinator. I know a lot of Eagles fans have been calling for the head of their offensive coordinator, just saying that he's not calling the right plays. He's not getting these guys in rhythm at all. It really bothered me watching A.J. Brown go to social media and, say what he said to the public about the fantasy team. Don't start me in fantasy. And then it's like 2nd and 10 yesterday against the Lions, and they're running a screen pass for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown isn't even a screen receiver. He's not a run after catch guy. I've never viewed him as that. You want to throw him the ball 30 yards down the field on 1-on-1 situations, and it just really bothered me to see because he's complaining about targets and the whole Eagles offense has been very underwhelming this year.
Yeah.
Now they have to even more go away from their identity in a running game with Hurts and Saquon to get these guys more targets when it's out of the flow of the offense. Something's really, really off.
Even then, that one game where they ran the tush push like 4 plays in a row, and you could have just given the ball to Saquon Barkley. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what is going on, what they're thinking.
But the Madden curse.
That my Giants fan bias may be speaking, but Philly's just not that good to me. I just feel like some of the teams they're playing are just weak, and they're just getting lucky because I don't feel like they're as good as the record is saying.
I don't blame
I've
you.
been feeling that way since last year, even though I know they won. But it's like I don't feel like they're as good as their record shows.
I don't blame you at all. Yeah, and definitely two of the biggest fantasy disappointments in general have been Saquon and A.J. Brown. We mentioned very, very early on in the podcast the Buccaneers. Mike Evans, Bucky Irving. Obviously, Chris Godwin has only played 2 games this year. Emeka Egbuka was even out for like a week with an injury. Bucks have dealt with so many injuries, so you just have to put the Buccaneers on one of the lists for biggest disappointments in terms of fantasy football. They are a very good team. They are still competing on a week-to-week basis. Obviously, Egbuka is not a disappointment. Baker is not a disappointment, but I know Bucky Irving, second-round pick. Mike Evans, 4th or 5th-round pick. Godwin, I know, was even being drafted in the 8th or 9th, which people thought he would come back from that injury and look good.
Yeah.
He was actually I believe the wide receiver 1 through 9 weeks of last year. Just last year, he was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy through 9 weeks, and now he's nothing. So what do you make of the Bucs and all the injuries and how it's affected, fantasy football owners everywhere?
It's unfortunate that the injury bug hit him, and I feel like it happened last year too. They just really can't catch a break. At least we had Bucky Irving, but now it's like you drafted Bucky, you're stuck with maybe Rashad White.
Yeah. Now Sean Tucker, who just had a big game, but
Sean Tucker is kind of a sleeper. I think I might go Sean Tucker over Rashad White.
I probably would. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's pretty sad. It's one of those things where now it's just waiver pickups if you got their youngins. Just the young guys are taking over.
Tez Johnson, been a
It's
sleeper
really
guy.
good.
Kate Otten hasn't been that bad in fantasy for a tight end because everyone in tight end wise has been bad. So
Maybe not fantasy wise, but just like for their team, Sterling Shepard, my vet, that's kind of like who they've been leaning on too. But other than that, it's like you reach for Mike Evans, like probably like I did, because I think in the playoffs last year was easily 30 points each week.
Yeah.
It was insane. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna go Mike Evans. I'm gonna go for my guy. Hurt me, so I don't know. Hurt in receivers, hurt in running backs. If you got Bucky, got him early.
Yeah.
You missed on it.
you better hope that you picked up Rashad White as a handicap or handcuff to Bucky Irving because, man, he has been probably the biggest disappointment at running back outside of Saquon Barkley in the first round. If you're talking second-round running backs in fantasy, I would probably say Bucky Irving is right up there with the rest of it. Maybe even, Chase Brown, you could say for a while was the biggest disappointment because for the Cincinnati Bengals, but Bucky Irving, just because of the injuries, it's unfortunate. Hope he comes back in the second half and becomes a league winner in the playoffs, but I could also see it going either way. Where
I feel like if you had Bucky, you're probably not even going to be in the playoffs to make a playoff run unless you traded.
Unless you trade him early.
That or you drafted hella freaking backups and you have a deep bench and you have depth. Other than that, Bucky, come back to the playoffs, could play good. You just won't be there. You just won't be there.
And I can't wait for Bucky owners to be so excited he comes back for that first game when it's round 1 of the playoffs, and then Sean Tucker gets both the goal line touches and takes in. Bucky Irving owners get 8 fantasy points out of him in round 1. Knowing the Buccaneers wouldn't surprise me at all. Next team I want to talk about a little bit is the Baltimore Ravens because obviously a lot of people had very high expectations going into the year, and then Lamar went down. The Cooper Rush experiment was not pretty at all. Zay Flowers did not benefit from it. Derrick Henry was really bad for a long time. Really. They still do have DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, he's still there. Rashad Bateman, I don't think has played that much. Mark Andrews obviously has had a weird year. He just had that weird fake tush push yesterday for a 35-yard run. So I guess shout out if you started Mark Andrews yesterday. Congrats to you. But what do you make of the Baltimore Ravens start to the season? But now that they are healthy, do you think that they could be a team that, pushes people over the hump in the playoffs or specifically fantasy football? Do you think Derrick Henry is back, Lamar Jackson's back, or do you not believe?
I don't believe.
You don't
I feel like
believe?
maybe if you have Lamar, and that's really it. Other than that, I don't believe in the Ravens doing anything.
Okay, interesting.
How
So
do you feel, Steelers fan?
So when I look at their so statistically, okay, and this is saying something because technically in fantasy football, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the worst passing defense in all fantasy football, which I understand. if I look at the matchups, the Baltimore Ravens have very, very favorable fantasy matchups for the rest of the year. Now, I will say, seeing Zay Flowers go 3 for 78, you'd like to see a little bit more target share. Obviously, the 78 yards is fantastic. You just want to see him maybe get like 5, 6, 7 catches in that range. But as for Derrick Henry, I think he's back to being a workhorse back. I remember earlier in the year, I'm a big Ashton Genty owner. I've got a lot of Ashton Genty stock in my fantasy leagues. And I, at one point, was trying to flip Genty for Derrick Henry, but he was telling me he believes Derrick Henry was worth more than Ashton Genty at the time. And this was probably a good 3-4 weeks ago now when Derrick Henry still was struggling. And that really surprised me to hear guys still believing in Derrick Henry that much. Now, last week, I believe he had 100 yards and a touchdown, so he's kind of bringing his stock back up. As a Steelers fan, I don't want to say it, but the Ravens probably will win the AFC North. They got to beat the Steelers a couple of times, and now with Rodgers going down with injury and stuff like that, I am worried about those matchups against the Ravens later on. But overall, I think that the Ravens are going to be a team that, unless you have Lamar Jackson or maybe Derrick Henry, I will say Keaton Mitchell's been getting a lot more reps than you'd like to see if you're a Derrick Henry owner. And John Harbaugh is still not that great as a scheming coach. I hate to say that. I don't like John Harbaugh at all. But even then, I saw them at the 1-yard line for 3 straight plays, and they didn't give it to Derrick Henry one time. And it's like, just give the ball to Derrick Henry at the 1-yard line. I don't know what we're doing.
So, easy and obvious. And
that they don't do it. That an NFL coach could sit there behind the line and be like, no, we're not going to give it to Derrick Henry. We need to give it to Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone instead. It's like, oh, just give it to Derrick Henry. So I think I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think I'm going to say the Ravens will be a second-half winner this year. Now, I would love to agree with you and say that the injuries will stick with them and that they will not be second-half winners.
It's just when I buy into the Ravens, I just get disappointed. So it's one of those, why am I going to keep buying into it?
I don't blame you.
Sure, the statistics will say what they want to say, but they haven't shown me nothing.
Yeah, I love it. No, trust me, as a Steelers fan, I love hearing it, so I'm happy. Okay, well, not happy, but the last thing that I'm going to bring up, the biggest disappointment of the year.
Oh, my God, our boy.
We were
really,
trust me, I was buzzing. I was buzzing about this guy. He was the 22nd overall draft pick to the Green Bay Packers, and I really thought that the reason that I would be sitting here saying that the Green Bay Packers are possible Super Bowl favorites in the NFC was because they found a receiver that they trust with Jordan Love. Obviously, Christian Watson's dealt with injuries. Jaden Reed's been out the whole year. Romeo Doubs is wearing that. What's it called? That is hysterical. And he dropped like 4 catches yesterday. And yes, still Matthew Golden will not find his role in this offense. He has been, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment in fantasy football.
Sure.
And it's so sad because the other 2 first-round wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka, Tet McMillan, both top 10 in fantasy football points this year in terms of overall points, and then you have Matthew Golden sitting at like wide receiver 50 or something and not even getting touches on this Green Bay Packers offense.
Which
does not make any sense.
I'm trying to figure out, is Matt LaFleur have something against him? Is he doing something wrong, behind the scenes that we don't know? Because I was really high on Matthew Golden as well. But before the season started, I saw other people low, and I didn't understand why they were saying Golden wasn't going to do much. But now those people are probably right, and I'm over here thinking maybe I need to pick up Christian Watson, and I don't like Christian Watson.
I know, I feel the exact same way.
And I feel like I can't trust him at all. And all Green Bay needed was one receiver that they could actually depend on. Because all their receivers, they flash, but there's not a consistent receiver for Green Bay.
Yes.
I like Jaden Reed a lot, but hurt and not consistent.
Never
I do
been.
like Dontavian Wicks, but he can't be wide receiver.
Not wide receiver 1.
Not at all. It's like that room is just filled with 2s and 3s that will do good if you have that number 1 guy. And Matthew Golden was supposed to be that number 1 guy, and he isn't. It's looking like Tucker Kraft was wide receiver 1.
Tucker, he was definitely target number 1, and now with the injury, I thought that finally this would be his time. And then Christian Watson gets the 2 touchdowns last week, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Matthew Golden can't even get a target."
He had one good catch.
One good catch, that 24-yard catch that he had, and that's it. And then Jordan Love. It's so interesting to me because Jordan Love's whole quarterback philosophy is they want to do short run plays. They want to make sure they get the run game involved. They want to make sure they get their tight ends involved. But then if Jordan Love's doing a play action, he's launching it 50 yards down the field. I mean, it's what happens every single time is a Jordan Love just deep bomb. And I really thought that Matthew Golden's ball tracking ability and speed were going to be a perfect match to where Jordan Love is just F it. Golden's down there somewhere and just launch the ball down there, and it has not been that at all.
Last week would have been the week to do it. Giants, we have no secondary.
None.
Our cornerbacks, terrible.
Deonte Banks is terrible. I hate to say it. Banks is terrible.
Our safeties are bad. also really do love this Green Bay team, and I love the Green Bay team from years before. I was super happy with Golden
Probably
State.
still like Xavier McKinney, even though.
I love Xavier
Yeah.
McKinney, but I don't know. Matthew Golden's super disappointing. I really was expecting like maybe Offensive Rookie of the Year numbers from Matthew Golden, which is also kind of like who's gonna win that? Maybe
Yeah.
Art. I feel like the rookies.
Is it going to be Ekbuka? Is it going to be Genti? Is it going to be, oh, geez, I don't even know outside of those guys. Like, who else could this? Ted McMillan maybe flies into the rankings and
Maybe.
takes over.
That was supposed to be Golden, though, and I know a lot of Green Bay fans thought the same. You haven't taken a receiver in the first round in how long, and then you finally do, and he's barely getting any targets on the field.
Yeah, definitely in our, for the two of us who have talked a lot of fantasy football this year, definitely our biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah,
Keeping.
we were drafting. That's all we were talking about was, yes, I got Matthew Golden steal. This is going to be like my steal of the season.
And
boom.
it really was Emeka and Tet that were the real steals of the draft and not Golden. But leaning into that, I do want to talk a little bit about rookies because I feel like this is another year in a row now that these rookies are being drafted in the 7th, 8th, 9th round. But reality, they're just going too low. We're undervaluing them too much. But yet, Genti was what, a first-round pick in most drafts. So Marion Hampton was like a third-round pick. But yeah, Scatterbo was going undrafted. Caleb Johnson for the Steelers was a really high draft. He was a 9th, 10th round draft pick in the running back position. You could have drafted Caleb Johnson before you drafted Javonte Williams. And look at how that's taking for you now. So how are you starting to value rookies more and more? Do you think that, you know, when you see a rookie in the first round, say an Ashton Genti type talent, are you still going to want to reach on those guys in the first round over proven guys such as Christian McCaffrey? I know some people drafted Genti over McCaffrey. Or even like, I know the one girl went viral on ESPN for drafting Genti over Saquon Barkley and saying, I want a fresh legs running back, not a guy that's washed. How are you evaluating these these rookies?
I mean, it's hard because I know when you see them in the draft, it's one of those, do you want to take a risk on one of those young guys so early? But I feel like the way fantasy football has been moving, it might pay off to just do that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these vets, they are getting hurt. They're getting beaten out by the younger guys. I don't know if the younger guys are just coming in hungrier and they probably want it more, so they're beating out these older guys. But it's one of those things where maybe I can't be so scared of rookies.
I know. Maybe you can't.
That's what I am. I feel like depending on who the rookie is, I don't want to touch them.
Yeah.
Very few rookies like Sam Laporta I drafted his rookie year just because
It's a great pick.
Yeah, Chase Brown, I think his rookie year I took.
I've always been a big running back. I remember taking Ezekiel Elliott his rookie year, which I was so excited to take Zeke in the first round. I took Le'Veon Bell his rookie year. There's a lot of guys.
As far as like rookie receivers go, receivers are really deep in fantasy, especially before the season starts. Like there's no injuries. You're looking at all the receivers you have. The rookies just tend to fall because you want your Jeffersons, you want Jamar Chase, you're gonna want CeeDee Lamb. Before this year was so you want AJ Brown,
Tyreek Hills of the world.
Yeah,
you want
even
these
like
guys.
The wide receiver twos you were taking, like T. Higgins, you would take over the rookies just because. And then for Ibuka, you have an offense where okay, you have Mike Evans, you know Chris Godwin's going to come back,
Bucky.
and then Ted McMillan the year before was also like balling pretty good on the Bucks too. So it's one of those things of like, okay, not Ted.
Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan. Yep.
There we go.
You're right, but yeah, there was a lot of guys. Yeah, there was a lot of guys in Tampa Bay.
It's like, are you going to want to take someone on an already stacked offense, which now you know you probably should have because they're all injured. But
yeah, and then even like Bowers last year had to set the record for tight end receptions, and then bang, it became what tight end like 18 in fantasy now because of the injuries and he had that really big week the other week against Jacksonville, and maybe it was I don't remember who it was, but I know that 3 touchdown game was a big game. And then he followed it up with 3 points the following week. It's like these guys are very, very inconsistent players. Now I did mention also like Scatterbo, Travion Henderson, and Quinshon Judkins. And that's not even talking about Ashton Genti and Amarian Hampton, probably if he doesn't get hurt. I would say all 5 of them would probably have finished top 25 running backs this year in fantasy football. You know, Travion was falling a little bit, or Travion jumped up in draft. Like originally was pretty low and then jumped up when everyone saw the kickoff return in the preseason. Judkins obviously fell in every draft because of the off-season stuff that was happening.
Was doing pretty good too,
exactly,
so
and even I think week 1, Dylan Sampson had a great week. And everyone's like, "Oh, they're gonna run with Sampson." Judkins comes back week 3, and they gave him 25 touches immediately.
Yeah.
So it's like valuing these rookies is very difficult. I completely agree with you there. I will say I feel like I got to start learning off these previous seasons. Like BTJ and Malik Neighbors were both lower rated, like not lower, but further down picks who immediately in that second half of the year shot up in the rankings. We're starting to see the same thing now. If Ted McMillan has a crazy breakout in the second half of the year, you got to find these rookies that are going to have second half explosions. It's not about who starts the year as the rookies and who's, TreVeyon Henderson wasn't an RB1 until 2 weeks ago. And then in 5 days, he had 5 touchdowns.
This happens even last season. So for the Bengals, going into the year, Zach Moss was RB1, Chase Brown was RB2. So people were staying away from Chase Brown, but it's like things changed. I was hearing all throughout the offseason how much they love Chase Brown. So it was one of those things, okay, you just needed the opportunity, and then boom, stole it immediately from Zach Moss. I feel like it was only a few weeks Zach Moss was RB1, and then boom, Chase Brown. So you have to give the rookies a chance to also get a feel for the offense. There's very few times where you could just throw them into the fire and have like success right away. So just time to learn the offense and give them a chance to prove themselves.
Yeah, and I also think it's one of those things where if you see an unproven veteran that got the starting job, for the first 4 weeks of the season, they're probably not going to keep the starting job all year. The Najee Harrises of the world with the Chargers. You mentioned Zach Moss. That's a great example. Like, these are guys that were never fully great starters on their own team. They go to another team. They want to prove themselves. But at the same time, then you can make the same argument like Jaden Blue, 5th-round pick with Javonte Williams. I think a lot of people went into this year thinking Jaden Blue could have a bigger role than Javonte by this point in the season. And Javonte is the undisputed RB1 in Dallas. So it's like, finding the situations is so difficult and figuring out which rookie is going to explode and really predicting the week that they're going to because, TreVeyon has that 2-touchdown game. And now if you own TreVeyon or he's on the waivers, you're not getting him. You're like, he is staying a part of that team. Like I know RJ Harvey just got the starting job over J.K. Dobbins. I know, I'm sorry to bring up J.K. Dobbins. I know you love J.K.
I love J.K., but not only that, I had a waiver claim in for RJ Harvey, and I was going to drop Jaden Daniels. I thought Jaden Daniels was going to go on IR. And then I saw that he wasn't going on AR, so I canceled my claim. And then boom, I hear this news about J.K. Dobbins. I was like, I should have done Jaden anyway because I don't even have faith in the Commanders.
Yeah,
so I should have just done that.
But then it's the same thing, right? Bill has an 120-yard game, and people want to buy into Ja'Cory Cross-Scheme-Era to be that next running back. And then bang, he has 3 weeks with no Jaden Daniels, and he's been terrible the rest of the season. So it's like, figuring out these rookies is very difficult. I will say, if you are holding on to rookies or if you draft a rookie that you believe in because of the situation or what it is, just hold on to them for as long as you can. Don't drop them because I literally dropped TreVeyon Henderson 2 weeks before he broke out for, I think it was someone so stupid, like, I don't know, like the Jaguars backup running back or something. I was like, I need this guy. Like, I think he'll have a good game, and I dropped TreVeyon.
I did that I dropped someone's, I forgot who I dropped to get Vidal who got hurt.
Vidal.
I really needed a running back.
That's fair. Sometimes you got to do it based on positions, though. You know what I mean?
Now I'm just struggling. I also had like my young guy for the Bears for a little bit. I just needed someone.
Needed someone. I get it. So that's kind of going to do it for majority of the recapping of everything, up to this point in fantasy football. And I want to look a little bit before we go on to next week. We have a bunch of good games, a bunch of exciting games coming up this week in week 12. I think that there's a lot of matchups that could turn into big blowouts, such as Seattle versus Tennessee. I would be surprised honestly, I'd be a little surprised if JSN has this huge week this week because I could see Seattle going up 14-0 quick and saying, starters, you're just going to sit on the bench. Let's let Torrey Horton his minutes. Let's get Rashid Shaheed some reps. For example, I hate to say it as a Giants fan, but Lions-Giants could turn into a blowout pretty quickly if the Lions start.
We have no run defense.
Yeah, no.
I think Jahmyr Gibbs and Monty could just run right through us.
I could very much see it. And then even like Patriots going into Cincinnati this week, upgrading Drake May, upgrading Stephon Diggs, upgrading TreVeyon Henderson this week.
Disgusting.
Yeah, their defense, trust me, as a Steelers fan, I could tell you firsthand how bad that defense is. But what matchups do you like specifically? I know you just mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but is there any other players? I mentioned TreVeyon Henderson, Stephon Diggs for the Cincinnati. Is there any other teams that you think could have sneaky good games that you didn't see? You're looking through the schedule right now. Here, real quick, while you're thinking, I will say, I think this Chiefs-Colts game, because it's in Kansas City, something tells me I really want to upgrade the Chiefs wide receivers. After a bad game against Denver, I've noticed a lot of teams have bad weeks against Denver and then have really big bounce back weeks the following week after. I'm not saying the Colts are a bad team. I know they just traded for Sauce Gardner, which is, they didn't just put a Band-Aid on the issue in their secondary. They wrapped up the whole arm. I really do think that Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, and even possibly like Travis Kelce in that slot kind of tight end role are going to have big weeks against the Colts. This is a must-win game for the Chiefs. Chiefs cannot go into week 13 below 500 at 5-6. So if that happens, it's going to be because Rashee doesn't have a big game. It's going to be because Travis Kelce doesn't have a good game. But I think that for the Chiefs to be successful this week, Chiefs have to have a good game. Hence why I'm upgrading the Rashee Rices, the Travis Kelces, and the Xavier Worthies of the world.
Chiefs second half of the year, they
Always.
always tend to just go demon mode.
Always.
But I don't know. I'm trying to see outside of who you already mentioned.
I'll say another one. Jaguars, Cardinals. We've seen teams against the Cardinals just absolutely eat them alive. I know the 49ers just dropped 41 points this past weekend on them, so I would not be surprised to see the Jaguars and Travis Etienne and Tootin, the backup running back, absolutely just run all over that Arizona Cardinals team. Obviously, would like to see Brian Thomas Jr. back healthy and maybe he gets a touchdown target, but I would definitely be upgrading the Jaguars this week going to Arizona. But at the same time, does Michael Wilson maybe keep up that? He just had a big game this week, 15 for 185. Could Michael Wilson continue the trends and keep himself as a wide receiver one, even if Marvin Harrison Jr. comes back from injury?
I don't know. Vikings-Packers is an interesting one.
Vikings-Packers is an interesting game.
But it's like, I don't know who I would take.
See, the way I look at it is when I'm looking at, okay, Bills-Texans. This feels like a weird game I want to just kind of stay away from. I can't like Thursday games. I never like Thursday games in terms of fantasy football because they're the most unpredictable in my opinion, so I'm staying away from a game like that. We'll go to Steelers-Bears. I mentioned earlier the Steelers have one of the worst pass defenses in football statistically, so maybe you're upgrading Rome Odunze, maybe you're upgrading DJ Moore a little bit. Even then, DeAndre Swift has been very valuable to them when he's healthy the past couple weeks, so maybe upgrading the Bears offense, but at the same time, do you think the Bears are going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers? I think it's a very big toss-up. So if you think the Steelers are going to win, I wouldn't hate you saying, downgrade the Steelers.
Mason Rudolph playing, then I think the Bears could win.
The Bears could win. I mean, the Bears right now are 7-3 and atop the NFC North, which I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, but shout out to the Chicago Bears.
Their offense has actually, scoring, super high-scoring games I've been seeing for Chicago. And
Yeah.
I benched Jaden for Caleb a while ago, and I've been pretty confident.
Yeah. Don't blame me at all.
Yeah.
Caleb's been solid. Raiders, Browns, I would probably be downgrading the Raiders going into this. The Browns have been a defense that have statistically stopped a lot of really good players recently, especially in the run game. So Genty might be a little bit lower. Bowers, you don't know. Yeah. You'd imagine, right? Meanwhile, Bengals, Patriots might be the exact opposite. That could turn into a shootout.
Yeah.
You see a blowout, though? You see just a Patriots blowout happening?
I don't like the Bengals defense at all.
Yeah.
And it's even if they can score, I think Drake May's gonna score more.
Yep. And I will say, though, the only way I could see the Bengals players becoming relevant in this is a lot of garbage time minutes. I could see Joe Flacco in that fourth quarter when they're already down by 20 plus or 17 points just being like, here you go, Jamar. Well, if Jamar plays, he did spit on Jalen Ramsey, so he might be suspended for a game. Rumor has it Jamar Chase might get suspended.
I kind of love that as a T. Higgins girl. I
Yes,
just
you
need
would.
anything.
Yes.
I need anything.
Upgrade. So maybe, upgrade T. Higgins against the Patriots were a team that wanted to pay him, but he decided to stay with Cincinnati. So maybe he's got a little chip on his shoulder saying like, should have given me more money.
Maybe. You know who I thought should have thrown a bag at T. Higgins? The Chargers.
The Chargers. Great choice. Yep. Instead of Keenan Allen or instead of giving Quentin Johnson all these minutes.
I get it. Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, lovebirds. Reunite the boyfriends, fine. But I think the Chargers should have thrown a bag at T. Higgins, and that would have been fun. Him and McConkey, because realistically, I don't see how Cincinnati could keep that team together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love Joe Burrow, but I don't think they win a Super Bowl.
No.
I don't think he wins a Super Bowl with that team. You have to pay him. You have Jamar on the huge contract. You have T. Higgins on that huge contract. You can't afford to pay Trey Hendrickson. You have no defense. And if you have no money going into your defense, it doesn't matter how good your top three guys are, in your offense, you're not winning anything. So I do see that team breaking up. So it's like T. Higgins could have gone out already. Could have gone back.
Yep, could have gone back. And they probably could have upgraded their defense so much more to this point and probably have the same record. I hate to say it, T. Higgins isn't adding many wins to this team.
And especially after the year he had last year, I don't see him getting the same amount of money after this year.
True.
Because it's been a down year for him. So I just feel like he should have probably used last year to his advantage. And I think the Chargers should have.
And then as a Giants fan, you say upgrade Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You think they're going to run all over you guys?
I think they're going to run. I wouldn't even mind if all three of them scored. Monty, Gibbs, St. Brown. I would not be
Maybe
surprised.
they throw Jamison Williams in there, who's caught a touchdown in 3 straight games now, too.
That, too. Also, the Giants historically are terrible against tight ends.
Okay.
So tight ends are very
So
successful.
Brock Wright. Brock Wright. Upgrade Brock Wright. Don't say we didn't say it here first. Brock Wright, anytime touchdown. Might be hitting.
It might be.
It might be hitting.
I'm telling you, notorious against tight ends. They
That's interesting. I will say I want to upgrade. I want to say upgrading the Ravens this week. They do play the Jets at home in a must-win game. The Steelers have that tough game against the Bears. So if the Steelers end up losing, the Ravens can then win that game and possibly overtake the Steelers for the AFC North. And I know the Ravens are going to want to come out in that first quarter and just hammer, get a quick lead and hammer right into the Jets.
Sure.
So I could see Derrick Henry.
Jets have been playing
solid.
They have
Sneaky
been. I feel
okay.
Like now I feel like they have a little chip on their shoulder because everyone's saying, "Oh, they're terrible." Obviously, they get rid of Sauce. You already have people trying to say fire Aaron Glenn, so I feel like they're kind of wanting to prove, like, hey, like don't count us out just yet, even if their record doesn't really say much. But they've been playing harder past few weeks.
True. And then the last game I will talk about that I think could turn into a shootout is 2 games. I could see Saints Falcons low-key becoming a weird offensive game, like a weird Tyler Shovers, Kirk Cousins. They just throw like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns kind of game.
Fun game.
Yeah, like one of those weirdly, one of those fun games that turn like 4 o'clock game that just turns into a 27-28 finish between the Falcons and Saints. Buccaneers, Rams. This should be a shootout. I expect Emeka Egbuka to have a big game. I expect Puka to have a big game. Obviously, Devontae Adams. Interested to see how the running backs play out in Tampa Bay, if they keep with Sean Tucker, if they give Rachaad White more of the passing game offense. But I do want to say last thing before we end this. You guys can keep disrespecting Kyren Williams every single year, but this guy just keeps finding ways to score touchdowns. He gets 20 touches a game. I do not understand why he keeps falling at the 3rd and 4th round every single year in fantasy drafts.
Also, Matthew Stafford, who went undrafted in a lot of leagues, on waiver wires, just sitting there, and he's having a hell of a
He's still in waiver wire in some leagues I was on. I was like, what is going on? I'm taking immediately.
For everybody, I think he's older now, and they kind of think he's injured or he's washed or he's bound to fall off. But Matthew Stafford sneakily having a really good season.
Maybe the MVP of the league. I believe he's at 27 touchdowns and only like 2 interceptions, if I'm seeing that right. Oh my gosh! Shout out Matthew Stafford in his 15th or 20th year at this point, going 2,600 yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Upgrade the Rams against the Buccaneers, upgrade the Ravens against the Jets, and upgrade the Lions against the Giants. That's going to be our Week 12 fantasy football conversation, but amazing first episode. We're going to be doing this every week, guys, so be on the lookout for more fantasy football content throughout the week. We're also going to be posting more stuff just on social media, so maybe, before a Thursday night game, we'll do our bold predictions for Thursday night games, before the Sunday games. All the fun stuff will be coming. From David Adams here in New York City. We appreciate you guys for tuning into the first episode of the David Adams Fantasy Football Show. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.